Breaking tonight, big news for the 2016 GOP field as Donald Trump surges to new heights in the polls and proclaims this is not about a man, but a movement. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Today, the well-respected Quinnipiac University releasing its first national polling on the 2016 race in nearly a month. Businessman Donald Trump maintains his #1 spot and widens his lead against fellow Republican contenders. Rounding out the top 5, well behind Mr. Trump, are Dr. Carson, former Governor Jeb Bush, and Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton is still #1, but took a 10-point hit in just the last month. And the word that first comes to most voters' minds when they hear her name, according to this poll, is liar. That's not good. For Mr. Trump, it's arrogant. For Jeb Bush, it's Bush. Okay. All this as the focus in the race turns to guns and God. We've got it all covered for you tonight with Charles Krauthammer, Mark Thiessen, Chris Steyerwalt, and Tony Perkins. But we begin tonight with Carl Cameron with the very latest from Washington.
Thanks, Megyn. Trump has had one of his best weeks yet, and he continues to gain momentum in the polls. He headlined a Chamber of Commerce lunch in South Carolina today that drew 1,800 people and said the amazing reaction is about more than just him because he's tapped into what he called a silent majority, a phrase Richard Nixon used in '69.
What we've done has been amazing. And it's not me. There's a movement going on. This is not like a normal, when you see Bush at 300 people and they're happy, and we have 17 or 1,800 people, and it's just there's something happening. There's something happening.
Trump's national lead is bigger than ever. In the latest poll, he's at 28% to Ben Carson's 12%. The rest of the field is in single digits. Trump also tops the Q poll's no way category. 26% of Republicans say they won't ever vote for him. Bush is second in that category with 18%. Trump is hoping to drive Bush's negatives even higher.
There's a reason he doesn't use his last name, because it's not going to work too well. Because we had a lot of problems with that last name. We had a lot of problems. There was an article that Jeb's funding is drying up. His paper. No, it's drying up. You know why? Because he's losing so badly, to me.
The other night, Mr. Trump made a big deal of signing up a new campaign co-chairman nationally. He was the former Iowa chairman of Rick Perry's campaign, social conservative Sam Clovis. Well, the Des Moines Register today published a leaked memo by Clovis when he was working for Perry 6 weeks ago, in which he slams Trump for Trump's faith. Quote, Trump left me with questions about his moral center and his foundational beliefs. His comments reveal no foundation in Christ, which is a big deal. Trump said he wasn't aware of that email, but suggested the fact that Clovis is with him should speak for itself. Trump likes to talk about his book, The Art of the Deal, and he describes it a lot as his second favorite book behind the Bible. But when he was asked yesterday to quote a favorite verse, he wanted no part of it and repeated that it's a personal matter and he's not going to be specific. Megyn?
Joining me now, syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor, Dr. Charles Krauthammer, who is the author of Things That Matter, available now in stores and online. It's sold like a gazillion copies. Charles, it's great to see you tonight. And so,
good to be here. Donald
Trump leading by the highest anybody has had in the entire race, and what he said there was, there is something happening. There is there not? He's stumping the pollsters and taking the voters along with him.
Well, there's no doubt that he has a very strong constituency. Now it's up to 28%. The question is, how far can he expand beyond that? I don't think anybody really knows, but as we heard in the Cameron report, when you have a very large number of Republicans who say, well, they will never support you, it does put a ceiling on it. And you got to remember this. There's a huge gap between where Trump is and where #2. That's Ben Carson, and then all the rest are in single digits. But we are now with a field of 17 people. And in a field of 17 at 28%, you're the king. The question is what happens when the field inevitably whittles down and you are down to the finalists, the 2 or 3 or 4 finalists. You don't win with 28%. And the question is when those others fall away in the single digits, where does their support go to? And that, I think,
What are they trying to say? Those 28% who who are all behind Trump at this point, what are they saying? Is it, Thiessen was on the other night saying it's not just anti-Washington, it's anti-politician. If you look at Trump, Carson, and Fiorina now rising in the polls.
Well, it's anti-politics in a sense. I mean, it's as if a badge of honor is never to have been in government. But it's more than that. It's a way of saying that there is not a dime's worth of difference between the parties. And we want somebody who is not hidebound one way or the other. And look, a lot of this is simple style. I mean, the one thing about Trump is he may not be a politician, but he's a very successful, extremely expert reality television star.
He's not
and
boring.
His campaign is the greatest reality television show ever done. Now, the question is, will that win you an election and will it make you a good president? That's a separate question. But in campaigns, which are now so dominated by what's called free media, he is the master of it.
But who
and
else
that
on the
explains
GOP
the
side?
meteoric rise.
Is there anybody else on the GOP side who has the it factor? I mean, look back at when Barack Obama was running. He was up against somebody who was very powerful and was expected to get the nomination, Hillary Clinton. But Barack Obama had the it factor, whatever it is, you know, to sort of penetrate the lens and connect with people. Is there anybody on the GOP side who has the potential to do that other than Donald Trump?
Look, nobody can compete with him on the it factor. The question is, when people go to the polls, are they going to say, I've been highly entertained, I like this guy's style, but I really don't see him with a finger on the button, and do I really want him to be the one who's going to be running our policy when we know he's had so many contradictions in policy and has such trouble talking about policy? I mean, in the end, people are going to have to decide if they want boring and serious. When they have to decide.
There's been a whole lot of boring and serious. You want boring and serious? You got it. There's a lot of options for you.
6 months out, boring and serious won't play. On the night of an election, I think serious, boring is going to work. But look, it isn't as if nobody else has any charisma at all.
The image of the Republican voters going into the booth like, oh, boring and serious, number one, boring and serious, number two. Let me ask you about the positioning in the polls. Obviously, Donald Trump way at the top. Ben Carson, number 2 with 12% in this Quinnipiac. But the people who are down, Jeb Bush is down, Governor Walker is down, Rand Paul is down, Mike Huckabee is down, obviously Rick Perry, but he was down at the bottom. All those folks are down from the last time. I know it sounds crazy to even ask this, but are Jeb Bush and Scott Walker on their way out? They were the front runners not long ago.
Scott Walker, I think, was the most hurt. Bush, I think, has the infrastructure to hang in there. And in the end, I think he will be one of the strong finalists. But look, there's one number in the poll that I think people haven't remarked on, and that's favorability. And that is the key, as I said, in a campaign where the 17 candidates will inevitably end up at a very small number. That's the long-term predictor of where we're going to go with this. In other words, if your favorables are very high, you may be low today as the number one choice. But if you're the second choice, the third choice of all the others who will be dropping out, that will serve you in the long run. And on the favorability numbers, it's a very interesting result. Walker is -1, meaning the unfavorables outweigh the favorables. Cruz -6, Rubio and Trump -12, Rubio +14. I think he's the one who has, and among Republicans, his numbers are 72-3. And I think that tells you he may be the last man standing, and he is not boring if you listen to him and if you take him seriously. He's not Trump. He ain't Trump, and nobody is Trump.
No, that's for sure. Charles, it's great to see you.
My pleasure.
Well, the issue of gun control was also hot on the campaign trail today after the father of a young reporter killed on live TV came on the Kelly File last night to call for tighter gun laws.
This is not the last you've heard of me. This is something that is Allison's legacy that I want to make happen.
Chris Stirewalt, Nomiki Konst, and Dana Lash are next on that. Plus, we are seeing evangelical voters starting to weigh in on their picks from the Republican field. And Tony Perkins is just ahead on what he is hearing from this critical group.
I lead with everybody. I lead with old, with young, as you saw it, everybody. But one of the groups I lead with substantially, evangelicals.